So over the past several weeks, I've been getting a lot of trades from you guys that you have sent in to me. And I wanted to just kind of evaluate some of these trades today, let you guys know what I think about your particular trades that you're making in your own Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues, and see what everybody else thinks in the fantasy community. I want everybody to have an opportunity to voice their opinion on these trades right here, and let me know what you think of how I feel about these trades. So this is, of course, a new channel exclusively for Dynasty Fantasy Football. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from this video today. So the first trade that I wanted to highlight here, you can see the trade on the screen. It came in from Z0074. And what Z said was he just traded his 2025 second round pick and a 2026 third rounder for Austin Eckler. His running backs are Tony Pollard, Jaylen Warren, Deonta Foreman, Israel Abanikanda, Tyler Algier, and Jamal Williams. Thoughts on this trade? Lost in the semifinals last year, not a super flex league. 2 running backs, 1 flex type of league. So what I think about this trade right here, let's go through it step by step. So the big piece in here is obviously Austin Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler, if we were filming this in 2022, we would have a much different experience with this, and this trade probably would not have gone through. You probably wouldn't have been able to make it happen. Austin Eckler, at this stage of his career, is obviously coming off a horrendous fantasy football season. And I know there's a lot of people who may make excuses for him. Well, the offense was really bad, and, Brandon Staley, he just ran such a mess in Los Angeles. Listen, I get all that. I didn't like Brandon Staley as coach either. I was ready to see the guy get fired. Austin Eckler, I'm not really going to give him much of a pass for this particular one. Austin Eckler simply was not very good. You can see the numbers of what he did this year on the screen. Austin Eckler was not an efficient runner. And once those touchdowns that he had been getting for all these years finally went away, that's when you saw Austin Eckler and his fantasy value come down to life. Add on top of the fact he's approaching the age of 30 and he's not under contract anymore. And I would bet that we're going to see Austin Eckler walk at free agency in just about a month. That's what I'm betting here with Austin Eckler. Now, when it comes to his dynasty value, a player like this with Austin Eckler, I do believe making a trade with a second rounder next year and a third rounder the following year is a trade that is worthwhile, and let me tell you why. So Austin Eckler, obviously, we just highlighted. This guy looks like he's on the downward trajectory in his dynasty career. There's really nobody going to be, I would doubt to see an NFL team sign him as their workhorse running back. There's nobody that's going to give him $50 million, right? That's just not the contract Eckler's going to get. But if we can hold on just for one more elite season, if he has the chance to do that, trading a second and third rounder, in my opinion, is worth it in a dynasty league in rookie drafts. Because the way you have to look at this is if Austin Eckler doesn't rebound, maybe you've given up a player like Tylan Wallace a couple years ago when he was a second or third round pick, right? Maybe you gave up a player like Trey Lance, who was a second rounder in 1 quarterback leagues, which is what you're in. You're not giving up too much, right? It's a dice roll anyways when you're picking in rookie drafts. You're not exactly getting some, highly touted, bulletproof prospect in the second or third round of a rookie draft. That's just not going to happen. So taking a shot on a player that we have seen it in the past, and maybe a new team, a new place, just gives him a fresh breath of air. And he can be good for one more year. I think that is worth it because, especially if you lost in the semifinals last year, this is the type of player that if he goes to a new team, a new situation, and he rebounds, this could give him the shot of life that he needs, and it could give your team the shot of life it needs and push you past as a champion. So overall, I think this trade is a good one. It's a trade that I would personally do for myself just to take a shot on a player who may or may not rebound, but I would take the shot on a player who has already shown elite fantasy production. The next trade I got right here, it's from Aiden Zeni, and he wants to know, would I be crazy to trade for the 101 and T. Higgins? I'm sorry, would I be crazy to trade Chase for the 101 and T. Higgins in a 10-team superflex? So obviously I'm assuming the move here is to go grab a guy like Caleb Williams with that 101. And obviously you're going to get a wide receiver with T. Higgins, who is still viewed very positively in the Dynasty community, but obviously nowhere near Jamar Chase. The 101 for Jamar Chase is really the big piece of the pie here, and T. Higgins kind of sweetens the pot a little bit here. It's a 10-team Superflex league, and I got to be honest with you here, man. I think that this trade, in my opinion, is it's not crazy. I don't think it is crazy. You asked if it's crazy. I don't believe it is a crazy trade. I mean, we're talking about one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in a very long time. Caleb Williams is viewed as not necessarily in the Trevor Lawrence type of category with Peyton Manning and those guys as prospects, but as a prospect, he's viewed very similarly to a guy like Joe Burrow. So Caleb Williams could do a lot of things. And T. Higgins is a guy that is still viewed very favorably in the Dynasty community for the most part. And rumor was this past week I saw that the Bengals might tag him, and he may be a Bengal, but there's no guarantee of that yet. So T. Higgins very well may walk and be the wide receiver 1 on his own new team. Here's what I think about this. Jamar Chase is a guy in Dynasty that I do believe is just too good for this low of compensation to get him. Now let me break this down because it has two factors. First of all, let's evaluate the real Jamar Chase, right? Jamar Chase's best season thus far has been his rookie year. Jamar Chase also in that year had a fully healthy season and had a full season with Joe Burrow, his college quarterback as well. So they already came into the league with a bunch of cohesion and just a lot of chemistry together because of college. And Jamar Chase the past 2 years has been a little underwhelming, and there's been some injuries to both him and Burrow. And so I've actually seen a lot of people in the Dynasty community express doubts about Jamar Chase. And this is exactly where I want to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments what you think about Jamar Chase. I still view him as a top-tier Dynasty asset because I know if we get a full season with him and a full season with Burrow, the potential is limitless. He could easily be the wide receiver 1 in any particular year. And he's still very, very young. So let's analyze the 101 in the Superflex League. Now, if you wanted to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., it's different. We'll evaluate that in a minute. But if we're looking at if we're really looking at Caleb Williams, I reject the notion that he is some surefire, sure-to-hit Dynasty player. He's going to the Chicago Bears in all likelihood. So the history of the Chicago Bears is not exactly favorable for quarterbacks. Their best quarterback in recent memory, I want to ask Bears fans this, in my opinion, it was probably Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was the closest quarterback in Chicago Bears history to cracking 4,000 passing yards, and even he couldn't do it. Not a single quarterback in the Chicago Bears team history has had over 4,000 passing yards. That is simply unacceptable at this stage of the NFL, modern day NFL. Unacceptable. And now am I saying that Jay Cutler or Mitch Trubisky or Justin Fields are better quarterbacks than Caleb Williams? Not necessarily. I think Caleb Williams has more arm talent than Mitch Trubisky. I think that his arm talent is probably similar to Jay Cutler's. Jay Cutler was a very good thrower of the football. Not the athlete that Justin Fields is, but he's a better thrower. I don't believe this notion that he's going to be some surefire pick, though. So I reject that notion. Now, if you wanted to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., this could be more interesting because I do believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. is close to the level of prospect that Jamar Chase was and could be close to the level of player that Jamar Chase is. Now, that will come down to the team fit and where he lands because if he goes to New England, those first few years are not going to be good. Whereas with Jamar Chase, you know you've got it good in Cincinnati, right? So I would not do this personally. I would stick with Jamar Chase. I think he's just simply a better prospect than Caleb Williams is. I think Jamar Chase has proven more. I think his dynasty value is more set in stone than a guy like Caleb Williams. So I would personally not do this trade. Andy, 23, is the next person I have up here. And Andy says, I'm having a hard time here. I have Hertz, Herbert, and Kyler. So 3 very solid dynasty quarterbacks right here. I have the 102 and the 104 so I can snag Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake May. Would you trade Jaylen Herz straight up for Jamar Chase? It's a 10-man Superflex Dynasty Start 10 full PPR. So we're looking at 3 really good quarterbacks here, right? And it's a Superflex league, so obviously you're starting 2 out of those 3. And the other one is a very, very good backup quarterback on your bench whenever one of them gets injured or there's a bye week, right? I agree with having 3 solid quarterbacks on your team in a Superflex. What I do believe here is that with the draft capital that you do have the ability to likely snag at least Jayden Daniels or Drake May. Now, in a Superflex league, I don't know exactly what the guy with the 101's thinking, obviously. I would imagine they'll probably go with Caleb Williams. So you're going to have the shot to get at least a Jayden Daniels or a Drake May here. At the 104, even if you went with Marvin Harrison at the 102 and you decided to just go with either Daniels or May, whoever fell to you at the 104. I think that strategy is very good. So me personally, the 3 quarterbacks you already have right here, Jaylen Herz, Justin Herbert, and Kyler. Justin Herbert has probably the second most dynasty value to only Jaylen Herz. I think Jaylen Herz still does have the most dynasty value. But I have said this in the past, I do not believe that Jaylen Herz is locked and loaded to keep his spot in Philadelphia past 2023. I think if he has another down season, we could see some major change up in Philly. So I'm a little uncertain about Jaylen Herz. And this is exactly why I would trade him for Jamar Chase straight up. Because we know that his value in a Superflex league very much on the same level, if not even a little more than Jamar Chase. So if that trade offer is on the table, I might ask that person, hey, I want a second round pick in addition. See what they come back with. Because if they're accepting of that, then you've come out another pick on top. But I would personally do this deal straight up in a Superflex league because you're going to have access to at least Jayden Daniels and Drake May if you go with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 102. And you could get one of those 2 guys, possibly outside chance of getting Caleb Williams at the 102. So this trade right here, I do believe that you're just going to make your team richer in Dynasty. So the last one I've got up here today is from Julian M. 1035. Now, Julian M. said they traded Rashad White, Nick Chubb, the 211, and a 25 second rounder for Jackson Smith-Njigba before his breakout game against Arizona. So, for those of you who are new to the channel, you don't know how much I love Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm a big Jackson Smith-Njigba guy. I evaluated him heavily in last year's draft class. Obviously, this is a new channel, so you don't see any of that analysis on this channel. On Football Fanalysts Network, my main channel, that's where I did the majority of his evaluation. He scored very well in my wide receiver prospect model. Now, with Jackson Smith-Njigba, this was before his breakout game in 2023 against Arizona. That was the first game he had a touchdown in the 2023 season. So before you did that, you traded away Rashad White, who actually turned out to be very good in fantasy in 2023. At that time, it didn't look like he was going to be very much. In Dynasty, he's 25, and not exactly a player that I have a ton of confidence in moving forward. So I don't necessarily have a huge problem with trading Rashad White away. Now let's go on to Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, obviously, his Dynasty value plummeted after the injury. It's his second major, brutal knee injury in his career, and we may never see Nick Chubb be the Nick Chubb we remember him as. So I don't exactly have a problem with that at all. The 211 is obviously a great pick to send away, in addition to a 25 second rounder, which could be anywhere from the 201 to the 212. This is a deal that I like, and I'll tell you why. Because Nick Chubb, yes, he is a good player, and he has been for a long time in fantasy football, but Nick Chubb's dynasty value has plummeted since that trade. Nick Chubb did get injured before this trade happened, but Nick Chubb, who knows what's going to happen? So maybe it hasn't plummeted, but it's been around the same, maybe even a little less. Rashad White, his dynasty value has risen a little bit. Maybe try to keep that 25 second if you had to do this again. But again, that's the only thing I can identify here, because you're sending 2 second rounders for a player that was no worse than the 103 likely in your Dynasty rookie draft. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I still have a ton of faith in. I've got lots of faith in Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I think that he's better than most of the wide receiver rookie prospects this year. I would take him over Malik Neighbors. I would take him over Romo Dunze. Not over Marvin Harrison Jr., but that's about it. But you're not even having to deal with that. What's on the table? 211. And then the 2025 second rounder. I think this trade is very good. I think if you had to do it again, you probably would. And if I was in your position, I would definitely do that trade. So as always, guys, let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. If you guys like this video and you want to see another one again, where I evaluate your Dynasty trades, put your trades in the comments below, and you'll be featured on the next Dynasty Trades video. And if you've got some players on your team that you're kind of a little bit uncertain about, maybe you're even a little bit panicky over, click on this video right here to see what you should do with those players that you might be panicking on yourself.